Hello, and welcome back to the Wheel Talk podcast. It's going to be an interesting episode for everyone today. We are sans most of the regular crew, but I found some maybe better replacements. No offense. I am joined by Rebecca Charlton. Rebecca, hello. Welcome back. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me back. Flattery will get you everywhere.
Also, do you prefer Becca or Bex or Beck or...
Well, I feel like professional-wise, I go with Rebecca, but Bex, that's, yeah.
It seems like quite fun, Bex.
Yeah, I'll be Bex today.
And drum roll, please. Brrr. Today on the podcast, I know listeners to our podcast at the other place are going to be absolutely thrilled to hear the voice of Amy Lauren Jones.
Hello. I'm back after being cryogenically frozen since the end of the other podcast.
Wah, wah, wah. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to talk cycling with you. It's been a minute.
I know. It feels weird. I have to dust off the microphone, quite literally.
We're going to chat a little bit about nationals. We had some order restored to the world in the national championships. And then we're going to preview the Giro Donne, at least what we can. We know the course. We don't really know the riders, but I think that we can guess a little bit at some of the people that will be lining up on Friday. Before we start with nationals, this episode of the Wheel Talk podcast was made possible by the generous support of our members at the Escape Collective. Monthly memberships start at just $11.99 American dollars, or you can save 30% on an annual payment. For more information, head on over to escapecollective.com/join. That's escapecollective.com/join. And thank you so much to the members of the Escape Collective for making this possible. All right, let's start with the time trials. I feel, to the surprise of literally nobody, Chloe Dygert took the U.S. National Time Trial Championships and the road race. That one's maybe a little bit more surprising, but she took both titles. So a pretty big win for Canyon SRAM and a big win for Chloe. Another chip away at her prep for the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift.
When I was on the podcast with you, Abby, we obviously delved into how we have just seen such huge progress in her comeback from the horrendous crash that we all witnessed, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, she's most definitely back, isn't she? And to see that double, yeah, I probably wasn't overly surprised because we'd had so much focus on her after Ride London, but what a ride.
Yeah, and I guess in the road race, also unsurprising, as she can win, especially on U.S. soil with no teammates. So the fact that she was kind of on her own, a little isolated there, totally makes sense.
Isn't she like pretty much the only Canyon rider winning right now?
Look, I hate name pronunciations. I'm terrible at it. Igniska?
Soya or something?
Yeah, the Polish rider on Canyon SRAM who's not Kasia Niewiadoma won the time trial in Poland. So she is the Polish national time trial champion. So they took a couple other like national titles. But they definitely, it was not only Chloe taking national titles for Canyon SRAM over the weekend.
I meant like winning races.
She's the only Canyon SRAM rider winning World Tour races. That's correct, yeah.
Sorry, Canyon. No offense.
But Kasia was so close at Switzerland. Like she was so close. Ugh, I'll never get over it. All right. We also had an upset in Spain where Mireille Benito of AG Insurance won over Mavi Garcia. Mavi retaliated by taking the road championship later on in the week. Mika Kroger won in Germany. Human Powered Health.
Mika Kroger, there's such a funny thing about like her name everywhere. Like
the Twitter, I don't get it.
I don't get it either, but it's funny. Like
I think they've made it into a song.
Yeah, I've seen the song.
Yeah.
What have I missed here?
Oh, have you not seen it?
I have no idea.
She has like a huge fan club on Twitter, and I think it's just her name.
Literally any tweet about her, or even does it have to be about her? I don't know. People just literally put underneath like just her name, just Mika Kroger, just like
over and over and over and over and over.
Some bloke made a song and everything. Like I don't get it.
I have not heard the song. No, I need to.
Abby, song link in show notes.
Yeah, seriously. I will link it in the show notes. You can also just like Google. I'm sure on Twitter you can look it up, and it's there. And I don't understand. I can't make heads nor tails of it.
I'm kind of here for it though.
Yeah, I need a minute to do some research on this. I need to hear the song.
Paula Findlay was first in the Canadian National Championship time trial over Olivia Barrel. Blanca Voss took the Hungary title again. Really excitingly, and also we have Amy here, so she can sing the praises of mountain bikers. Jenny Risbets won in Sweden.
Go on, Jenny.
She's just signed a road deal with Co-op High-Tech Products, which is super exciting.
Hope she's still, I think she's still going to do mountain bike though.
I'm sure she would.
I do have a big like bone to pick when people like see mountain bikers doing any road and then they're like, oh my God, they should do road full time. Like, man. And I'm like, mountain biking is better. What?
It's more fun.
Yeah.
We had Urska Zigar in Slovenia. We had Anna Kiesenhofer in Austria. Emma Norsgaard in Denmark again. And Lotte Kopecky won in Belgium. There was a lot more that happened, but I think if we were to sit here and read out all the national championships, we'd be here for hours.
You're doing a fine job though. We're just sitting back here and letting you update us, Abby.
Like shipping forecast or something.
Yeah, it's nice. I'm just relaxing into
I'll power through some of them and then I will pause when I know that there's a conversation to be had.
Hopefully we'll say something insightful. Yeah.
So here we go for the road races, many of which are not surprising, but also like beautiful to see. Iri Yonamini won in Japan again for Human Powered Health. Mavi Garcia, I just said, won the Spanish National Championship again. In the Netherlands, Demi Vollering took her first elite Dutch national road race. Second?
No, first, I think.
I think it's her first. Yeah. Which, like kind of seems right. I think that a lot of people would have been really happy with basically any Dutch rider winning this, except for Lorena Wiebes, because I don't like it when one rider has like a jersey that trumps the national jersey. So as the European champ, then the Dutch national jersey wouldn't be in the peloton anymore, which would be kind of a bummer. So really cool to see Demi Vollering take this title. And also, in case you needed to be able to spot her more easily.
Well, she does look a lot like Marlon Roos on the bike.
They blend together.
Quite useful of her to have won that jersey. Thanks, Demi.
Yes, it's really helpful for us. Thank you. Just interesting reading Annemiek van Vleuten's tweets after that saying should have been glued to Demi, wasn't, my mistake, but seemed just generally very happy in her appraisal where she's at, her form. But yeah, evidently not glued to Demi.
Well, she'll have to figure out how to do that by the time July rolls around. Marianne Vos was back on the road racing since La Vuelta Femenina. She's not raced since then, and she finished third. So great to see the GOAT back in action. She was the first non-SD Works rider to cross the line. Which these days is the second. Yeah, you might as well have just won. She should get like some kind of trophy for that.
First non-SD Works trophy. They should start.
Have you ever seen Jasper Stuyven makes like chocolates into the shape of jerseys? Maybe Marianne Vos can just have like a box of chocolates that are the Dutch national champ jersey.
I think, we need to fashion something and introduce this to the peloton, don't we, for this year?
The first non-SD Works rider should always get some kind of prize. The French National Championships was actually super exciting to watch. And Victory Berthaud of Cofidis won out of a breakaway that included 2 FDJ Suez riders. Obviously, the French World Tour team, it means a lot to them to have the French National Champ jersey in the team. So it was a little bit of an upset for a Cofidis rider to walk away with that. But the course was really awesome and the finish looked quite challenging. So all in all, a good race. Liana Lippert kept her German national champ jersey. Once again, order restored. Elisa Longoborghini is our Italian national champion again.
Did you watch the finish of that as well?
It was so good. Like, her and Guy Riolini rode so well together, and it is very exciting going into the Giro that we'll talk about shortly because they're both racing the Giro. And I'm very excited to see that whole group against SD Works, I have hope. Maybe I'll be disappointed in like 10 days, but I have hope right now.
I'm excited. No, I'm with you. I'm really excited. And again, talking about Longo Borghini and, the amount of illness that she's struggled with earlier in the season, but definitely back and just in time for the two biggies.
Gary Link's just so impressive, like how she's just kind of slotted in this season and she's killing the game already. Like, I tuned in to the Nationals just as she was bridging over with Cavalli to the move with Elisa and Persico. And I was like, oh, like now they've caught, like maybe they'll go for Gaia or like, I don't know. And she just got straight on the front and just started like pulling, like, and I was just like, what a gal. Like, she's so good. But the sprint too between Persico and Elise, that was messy.
It was really messy. And Persico like leaning on Elisa at the finish. The photos, you could have thought like maybe they're just buds racing against each other, and like Persico was just like leaning on her for like a little bit of support. But it was definitely like a little bit of a messy finale there.
Elisa the sprinter continues to impress.
I think I would have been happy with Persico winning the national title, like given how much she's progressed and how exciting of a rider she is for the future. But it's still like Elisa Balsamo took the national title last year from Longo Borghini, and Elisa Longo Borghini was all of a sudden in the regular Trek kit. It like threw you off. Like watching the Giro was like, I don't understand what's happening.
I would get her and Balsamo confused. They look nothing alike on the bike, but I'd just see the Italian national jersey and I'd be like, oh yeah, it's Elisa Longo Borghini. No, it's not. So yeah. Again, great for me. Thanks, Elisa, for identification.
Well, all you have to say is Elisa and you're good. So
yeah.
Something, I mean, going back to what you're saying about Gaia Railini, I know I'm such a cliche-full commentator, but she does make it look easy, and like she just sort of like bounces across. And then when she's had, just thinking about the time she suffered a mechanical on a really steep gradient, and then just gone like, no problem, I'll just pedal back up. Like, it does genuinely look effortless. But something that I keep thinking about is I heard another commentary team talking about the element of the legal bike weight versus her body weight, and I just can't unsee it now. And like the proportion of her overall weight being, this massive bike compared to just how light she is as a rider. I mean, that's probably another conversation, but she is spectacular to watch, and she's just, it's just her pedaling style on a climb. It's beautiful.
I love her little cap too. Like, she's got some flair. But yeah, I talked with Ashley Moen-Pasio on a podcast formerly at a different place about how much the weight impacts her. And she's like twice the size of Gaia Railini, but still tiny. So it's like, yeah, she's like, the bike must weigh so much compared to her as a person. And I feel that if the same thing was in men's cycling, the rule would change. But obviously it's based on men's cycling, and it doesn't favor riders like Gaia Railini or Ashley or like Veronica Ures. She's also like quite a petite rider.
Yeah, it's probably about time to introduce like a different weight limit for women. Like, it kind of makes sense. Like, it's kind of a no-brainer, actually. I don't really know why it hasn't been done already.
Yeah.
This is actually a perfect opportunity to... we had a question from one of our listeners a couple weeks ago about whether or not the growth of women's cycling is going to impact the industry's production of bikes that fit riders the size of Gaia Railini or smaller than the average bike user. And I asked Dave Rome, one of our resident tech experts at Escape Collective, and he sent me an 8-minute long audio. So here, for the first time ever, is 8 minutes worth of tech talk in the Wheel Talk podcast. You're welcome.
Hey, Elizabeth. It's a good question, and I think it's one of those questions that for every person you ask, you'll probably get a very different opinion of. For me, I mean, this is actually something I've been watching relatively closely for the last 10 years or so, and worked with a few journalists over the years to put together, I guess, roundups and features on this topic of how it's progressed. And sort of we've seen in the last decade some pretty big progression where we went from an industry that sort of saw the female market as something that they could basically apply the cliche design tactic of shrink it and pink it. And then we saw that market, I guess, grow to enough prominence that this previously male-dominated industry actually put some real money in R&D and looked at the data and started to make women-specific bikes. So, there was a time where we saw Specialized and Trek and Giant, and Canyon came later, but there was quite a few brands that were putting money into creating legitimately good women-specific bikes that weren't just smaller, but designed specifically around a different set of fit data and had the suitable components to match. At the same time, we even saw someone like Shimano create shorter reach brake levers, and that looked like it was going to become the next big thing. And then, I guess for Specialized and Trek, they had enough sales, but they effectively reassessed what their data was saying, and they looked at more recent data, especially based on their internal data, which they get through their own bike fitting systems. And they decided that they didn't actually need women-specific geometry, they just needed proportional geometry. So better size range that went to smaller frame sizes with more appropriate stem lengths, more appropriate handlebar widths, with better handlebar drops, for example, of course, better saddles, shorter cranks, and all that. And that's basically what they did. So they just updated their general ranges of road bikes and products, and slowly, wound down their women-specific ranges. The skeptical view is that they did it because it's cheaper to produce one bike than two different bikes. But for me, I think realistically, the data is potentially a little wishy-washy when you really look at it as to whether women need truly different geometry. They just typically just need a different fit. So I think there's that. You've also got the other argument from, say, Canyon and from Giant's offshoot women's brand Liv, where they're still obviously wholly invested in women-specific product, and at least from Liv's case, they still claim that there are important geometry differences. Namely, when you look at the frames, it tends to come with a higher stack and a shorter reach, so the bikes are a little bit more relaxed. And I'd actually say that is in reverse of what racing sort of performance-focused riders are looking for. You'll often find people that come from performance backgrounds, racing backgrounds, they actually tend not to always get on with those Liv bikes, and they, in some cases, they prefer the Giant equivalent of the bike, where it's a bit lower and longer in its fit. So, yeah, it's obviously it's incredibly personal, but I guess on that, I don't necessarily think that racing is going to be the best area or the best side of the industry for the trickle down to happen from. It's really the best bikes come from consumer demand, and often what the racers want is a very small niche segment of the market that doesn't necessarily always produce the best product. The professional racers getting different maintenance on their body on a daily basis. They're getting massages after every race. They're training their bodies to be able to hold very aggressive and aerodynamic racing positions. And yeah, that just doesn't necessarily lead to a bike that suits the everyday person. So there's that side of it. From a component side of things, I think there's been huge developments in the last 10 years. One great example that I like to look back on is the Specialized Power Saddle, that short nose saddle that Specialized has been hugely successful with. They've been so successful with it that basically every other saddle brand that I can think of has effectively copied them. And the story with that saddle is that it was apparently originally designed as a women-specific product, and some of the men within the Specialized company had tried it and decided that it was an improvement over the rest of the saddles, and it just became this universal saddle that is now equipped on all of Specialized performance bikes when I think about it. Like it's a saddle that comes on everything from their road bikes through to their mountain bikes, and they've sold a lot of them. I think things like brake levers, I mentioned before that Shimano did briefly do a shorter reach version of, I think it was a 105 level brake lever, and that was really designed for the female market. But I think in recent time we've seen them go and introduce hydraulic disc brakes, which have of course seen those levers get quite long in their effective reach. But at the same time, we're now seeing them, the next iteration of that, where they've decided that long length of brake lever is not great for everyone. It's actually not great for the vast majority of Shimano's customers. Like me personally, I'm very much average height, but I still hated those long levers that they offered. So the latest generation from Shimano, the latest generation from SRAM, you're really seeing a more compact lever come into the market. It's a much smaller profile overall. I'd say it's potentially the smallest we've seen in a long time. And obviously that's partly helped by electronics as well. But the latest mechanical stuff from SRAM Apex just came out, and that as well, they really emphasize keeping it small and comparable to their latest electronic shifter, which is no small feat. But the other thing with the brake levers is we've now seen brake lever reach, so how far the brake lever sits away from the handlebar. That feature has now become almost standard, which was actually a rarity. Like a decade ago, it wasn't that uncommon to need to use like rubber wedges to bring the brake lever back. Now it's just a little screw, and that works quite well. So I think overall the market's progressing in a good direction. Generally speaking, we're seeing handlebar widths in road bikes come down. We're seeing more compact shapes being used. We're seeing shorter cranks becoming standard and more readily available. So I think it's things are going in the right direction. And I think generally speaking, the industry is paying more attention to the needs of smaller riders, and perhaps figuring out along the way, whether accidental or not, that some of these features designed for smaller riders are better for everyone. So, and then that in turn is creating even smaller products for smaller riders. So I think we're going in the right direction. There's always more to be done, but I'm at least optimistic that we've come a long way in the last 10 years, and I think there's still a long way yet to go. Hope that helps.
Yeah, something interesting is looking at the rules and how to evolve them as the sport progresses, and we see different riders come through. And I believe actually that Ashleigh Moolman-Passio's weight, I think her exact weight is the lowest you can go on Zwift, or at least it was at one point, because again, I think she looked at what she could input as her data in the earlier days of Zwift, and it didn't go light enough. And so I believe, unless it's changed recently, that's as light as you can go, is Ashleigh Moolman-Passio's weight. But they had to look at that because she was lighter than the restriction.
They must. You kids and stuff can ride Zwift, no?
There is a limit. I need to read up on where it's at, because again, I think they've looked at that, and obviously Ashleigh's been a rider that's been instrumental in looking at the gaming element and insight like that. And it's been so useful. So I think there is a limit. I don't think you can go on with your correct weight if you're too young to do it. But I'll endeavour to have a little look. Talk amongst yourselves.
I wonder. I think it's kind of the things like this that are issues in women's cycling. I feel like are just. There's so many bigger issues that this is something that isn't going to be tackled for quite some time. The issue of the bike weight, like it's definitely something. It's something that impacts like a very small percentage of the peloton for one, but it's also like there are bigger fish to fry at the moment. But that sucks for like Gaia Riolini, because she can't even like reach her shifters if she's in the drops.
Oh, really?
Her hands are too small.
And they not adjust that? Me knowing all these things about tech.
Even to the adjusted to as close as they can possibly be, she can't reach her shifters she can't reach her brakes from the drops. Imagine descending like an alpine pass and you can't reach your brakes.
Maybe that's why she's such a sender. She just like woo
with her elbows out.
It's not
like,
me. Side note on that,
That'd be-
I don't know if anyone else has experienced this problem. But when you've got long nails and you're in the drops. And
Oh yeah, and you shift, you can rip a nail off, and it hurts so bad.
The mind it hurts. I'm not ripping my nail because I'm riding a bike. Like
I did it. I had like acrylic nails on, and I was racing Omloop at Newsblad, and I shifted and like ripped the nail right off, and I was like crying in the race. This sounds so dumb, but it is a problem, and a lot of the pros have acrylic nails.
So Lorena Wiebes, she always has long nails, and I'm like, how do you
shift?
I really want to ask her.
She must shift like with her fingers sideways.
Yeah.
Well, this is fascinating because I do currently have acrylic nails on, and maybe I'm just not riding enough or well enough.
We've really gone into a niche. All of our male listeners are like, "What on earth?"
They've left.
You can see the extent of.
Bring back Matt Denise.
I'll tweet a photo.
They look really good.
Oh, thanks for that. I mean, obviously that's what I was after, that compliment. But I've not had a problem shifting.
Maybe it's different types of what. We could go into so much.
This is getting deep.
Are they on SRAM? I think they're
SRAM's
on SRAM.
easier, I think.
I'm running SRAM.
I think SRAM is easier to shift, and they also have like I think that they're the paddles are are more responsive.
Yes.
Do you know what? It's only just occurred to me. If I was on Shimano, I'd have a huge problem.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
So someone needs to tell Shimano to sort it out for the girlies that get their nails done. Please.
The girlies that get their nails done and they love Shimano, of which I fall into this category.
I have until very recently been Shimano all the way, lifelong, and I've switched to SRAM at the moment. Obviously, because of the acrylics.
Because of the acrylic nails.
That's actually a big equation. If I get a new bike, I'm going to be like, no, it needs to be SRAM because my nails.
Okay, I'm going to redirect us back
we have done
to the national championships because we've really gone off on a tailspin.
Oh, well, I finally got a brief bit of information from the Google. 45 kilograms used to be the lowest minimum weight, but now it's lower, and I know that junior and young riders are encouraged to use Zwift. So my information earlier might have been dated.
Nice, cool. Well, I mean, if it's still right, even if it was dated. Ashley Moman-Passio out there just changing the game all the time.
She weighed more than 45 kilos, surely.
I think
45 kilos.
Don't make me go back on Google.
Okay, speaking of changing the game, Lotte Kopecky won in Belgium. Another piece of the universe slides into place. Lotte Kopecky back in the Belgian national champ jersey. Love to see it. Also, SC Works does such a good job with the national jersey, so really excited about that. Less excited about Pfeiffer Georgi's GB jersey on DSM, but
I thought it was alright because she had it last time.
Yeah, I think that there's only some jerseys that they've really botched, but maybe they did okay with the Great Britain jersey.
You can't really go wrong with it. Just white and then put the stripes on. It's a pretty nice jersey.
You would think that, but wait until we see some of the UAE.
I was going to say, she's not on UAE. You know what I mean? Let's wait for Lizzie Holden's TT one and then we'll see something.
Yeah. The Latvian national champ who's on the UAE Debo team, Anastasia Carbonari, she had a national champ kit last year that was like the Austrian flag. It's like, no, it's not the right red. But anyway, Pfeiffer Georgi won the Great Britain national championship, and it's her second time taking that title, but it was an awesome race.
So good.
Was so good. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I had a much closer eye on the home race for me, and watched exactly how that all played out. Whereas obviously I've tried to keep a bit of a broader view on what's been going on around the world with everything across the TT and road race. But what a spectacular win for her. And Pfeiffer and I share the same manager, Emma Wade, for anyone that knows her in the industry. Absolutely fantastic. And we were having a little chat about this. And obviously when she won it, when Pfeiffer won the national stripes last time in 2021, she was actually only able to wear the jersey for a shortened season, because we were still obviously post-COVID and everything had moved, hadn't it? So it was at a much later date in the calendar. So I think it makes it even more special for her to have that on her shoulders. But she always looks, despite the form she's in, despite how she's riding, I don't know about you, but I think she always looks surprised by herself. And she was obviously delighted, but she doesn't take it for granted. And I think when she put in that huge power move, she's almost looking in disbelief that it's paid off. And I think she said something in the press about how she planned for it, she believed it, she knew she could execute it, but still kind of shocked herself with the way she went and held that.
Well, it was such a dominant move from basically the bottom of that last climb, right? She just like kind of just let rip and like no one could follow, which I think, having looked at the course and the riders that were in that front group, like, just saying, guys, I pretty much called it from the start. I was like, Pfeiffer's going to win. Like, because she was the punchiest one in that group. Like, she's just a class act, isn't she, really? Like, I think she's just like the full package. And it's really good to see like young riders coming through the British scene that are such talented and like kind of well-rounded riders, I guess.
She is so well-rounded, and I think the way she executed that after doing so much work, again, for me, was what was most impressive, perhaps. Just calmly riding so well that she marks everything, and she doesn't just mark it, she'll do the work where it's necessary. She just has such a calm head on her shoulders, and always has done. I mean, I was looking back this morning at how long she's actually been on DSM now, and, you know, in her 5th season, and you do forget how young she still is, because she's such a mature rider, isn't she?
Watching her over the last couple of years has been so exciting, and what's even better is that her role on DSM, especially now that she's kind of one of the top riders on the team, on a really young team, is she's progressed from being kind of the new rider on DSM in a very short amount of time to becoming like the leader on the road, and also like a dominant leader on the road. When you look at the teammates she has, obviously she has Charlotte Kool for a lot of the sprints, but she is such a capable rider that I think that they will be turning to her more and more in the years to come for any kind of race. And she's not on the roster for the Giro, which I would assume means that she's on the roster for the Tour, which is super exciting.
It's really, really exciting. Actually, just quickly going back to the kit, I was in Barcelona a couple of weeks ago to launch the DSM Firmenich new team name, and they will have a slightly different kit unveiling at the Giro. So I am looking forward to seeing her national jersey in that new guise. But the stripes are still there, so it's not changed a huge amount. But yeah, it's interesting to see what they're doing behind the scenes. I'm going to talk about this later, because I know we're going to delve into a little bit of tech talk, and it's interesting looking at that culmination of the two sponsors coming together now. But yeah, Pfeiffer is she's happy in amazement, actually, since I've been following her career. She's an incredible artist. If you've ever gone on Instagram and seen her artwork, it's absolutely phenomenal. Like, she could undoubtedly just go and do that if she wanted. And then I was reading how she was really talented at ballet. She's done all these other sports, trampolining, and she was still, as you'll know, when she came into the Pro Peloton with DSM, she was still finishing up at school, and she was just unwavering in races despite having all her exams. And I just can't believe how she's just nailing absolutely everything, really.
Man, her and Megan Jastrab, what a pair. She graduated this year from college with, like, I don't know, she had a 3.9 GPA or something, and then she went to the Olympics in that time, and podiuming at World Tour races, wild. The two of them, wild. What are we doing?
Dream this level of I am multitasking quite a lot these days, but I'm not sure to the level of success in any of the elements that Pfeiffer Georgi is in every element of her life. But it was really brilliant to see somebody else in the British National Road Race that really, really stood out for me was Eleanor Barker. And it was an interesting one because you look at the way she rode, and it was quite frankly incredible, her form on the road at the moment. And I found myself thinking, well, will she be disappointed to not get on the podium? Of course, she'd already got bronze on the podium in the TT, which was fantastic. But to watch her in the road race and then think, oh, fourth, she's just missed the podium. But actually, in the past, yeah, we know her pedigree, but she is so finely tuned for that massive success she's had on the track. But to come onto the road and then us be going, oh, fourth, not third, or not second, or not taking the win, just shows where she's at actually this season with Uno X on the road. And obviously, I've been, well, for anyone that was listening last time, I've had an amazing relationship with Eleanor Barker recently because we went through pregnancy, as did you, Abby, at the same time. And so I'm really wary as a post-race interviewer, reporter or commentator that I'm not always bringing that narrative back to, well, you're a mum and yeah, you want to talk about the race, you want to talk about how someone's executed something tactically, but equally I really do actually think it's important to note where she's come from, having had her baby just over a year ago, and then to come back into form not only on the track but the track and the road. And we know now that with the World Championships in Glasgow coming up, because it's the first time every discipline will be rolled into one event, like one massive event now for the Worlds, she's actually putting her hat in the ring for the road and the track. So I am just so excited to see what we get from Eleanor next.
Yeah, she's such an exciting rider, and I think like she's been getting better and better on the road every year, even without having had a baby a little over a year ago, which still just like blows my mind that people can do that. I feel like, yeah, it can become overplayed, but it's also like you can't overstate how impressive it is that someone can do that. Not even like if you think about the time involved in becoming a professional athlete, it's not a full-time job. It's a 24/7 thing. And then you add on the time that it takes to be a mother or a parent. And it's just like wild to me that someone can do both. I like cannot stop singing the praises of the mothers in the peloton because they are doing way more than everyone else.
And there's more and more of them now.
Oh, it's so exciting. Chantal Vandenberg Black just had her baby as well. Did you know that scientifically it takes 7 years for your body to, like, quote, bounce back after having a baby? 7 years. For your body to be normal again, to be pre-pregnancy again.
What if you have two? What happens then? Is it 14?
Then you tack on 7 years on top of the whatever you have left.
Damn.
7 more years.
So bounce back culture can swivel too.
I mean, bounce back in terms of like your muscles becoming pre-pregnancy again. Your brain, because your brain literally changes when you have a baby. For your brain to like return to its former state, it takes 7 years for your whole body.
I think it's going to take 7 years for me to talk as articulately on a podcast as I might have done pre-pregnancy.
Yeah, because in 7 years, you'll maybe be sleeping through the night.
Yes.
And sleeping in.
I can't talk about it anymore. Every time I say I've had a night's sleep, it all just falls apart.
Unravels?
Yeah. It unravels.
That's because they can tell.
Keep quiet.
They're like, you mentioned that I slept, didn't you? And then they're like, I'm not going to do it tonight. Anyway, I think we should change the subject before we jinx ourselves.
We've already
back to the national titles. We're going. I love this. This is great.
Wait,
okay.
Before we move on from the British nationals, I think we can't talk about it without mentioning Claire Steels.
Yeah, I mean, I guess also in terms of the British nationals, I also want to mention Anna Shackley because she had a really great race coming back from injury and she won the U23 title, which I guess like in some countries, in most places, they merge the elite and the U23. And then sometimes you'll have like happened, we talked about it last week with Christine Majerus was second in the TT, but she won the elite title. So she'll still be in the jersey because the girl who beat her, whose name is escaping me, but she's on AG insurance. She entered in the U23 category. So even though she won the whole thing, she only is the U23 national champ. So Anna Shackley, good thing she didn't win the whole thing because whoever was second would have won. But she did win the U23 title. And I'm such a big fan of her, so I was happy to see her back racing and back like at the pointy end of a race. But yeah, please tell us about Claire Seals, Amy.
Well, I don't know too much about her, but I just know that she's quite new to the sport, and she's, I think, 36, and I think I'm sure this is her first year on Israel Premier Tech or whatever. She's actually just been crushing it this year. All the way back from Tour Down Under, she was really impressive. And she just rode really well. She was in what was the cream of the crop group in the nationals, and she came second. So I don't know, I just thought it was really impressive.
So she is 36. She's someone that I followed quite a lot because I was reporting for Eurosport in the UK on a lot of the domestic racing. So it was one of those names where you're almost doubting yourself, like, where's she come from? Have I just missed something here? But she obviously just smashed into the scene, 36 years of age now, and is just riding so well, isn't she? And I think we got a chance to really see that in context with that absolute cream front group. And she did an absolutely storming ride. I believe she works as a personal trainer, so is obviously in very fine form. But I think the way that she's come in as an older rider, we know she's fit. We know she can put out power, but actually the way she read and rode the race, I guess, is taking that to the next level. So it's mightily impressive to see that. I know that I'm dwelling on my home race here. I'm just going to apologise for that now. But a couple of other rides really struck me in that as well. And that was Alex Morris from Canyon SRAM. I was speaking to Dean Downing, who's been coaching her for the last year or so, a little bit longer than that. And he was just saying, again, she's kind of almost really come from nowhere in terms of her progression over 12 months. And she didn't have an ideal race, but she kept riding herself back up to that front group, and I think ended up in 7th in the end. But I think if you look at the fact that she only took up cycling during lockdown in 2020, then did her first race, won that, moved up a category, won that, just bounced up through the British category system, and then rode like she did yesterday. She's a really exciting one to watch as well. So yeah, I think between her and Claire Seals, there were some really interesting rides in there.
Also, Flora Perkins, who could be seen vomiting off of her bike, but continuing to chase back on just constantly. She was like, wouldn't take no for an answer. It was super impressive.
I missed that one. Bloody hell.
Yeah, that happened. All right, continuing on. Although I do want to mention really quick that if you missed the men's British National Championship, that was like the best race of the weekend. Man, was it good. Between the weather, the riders involved, the finish, everything, the interviews. I mean, like, highly recommend checking that out.
It was so long.
It was really long. Yeah. I would maybe steer people in the direction of watching like the final hour to 90 minutes. Because no one's got time for that.
Hard course.
I will continue to butcher names as I say that Rebecca Corner won the Danish National Championship for Uno X. Urska Pinter for Slovenia. She used to be on UAE. She's on BTC now. Suzanne Anderson won the Norwegian National Championships, also Uno X, which is a great result for her. I'm excited to see her jersey. Marlon Reusser won in Switzerland. So,
Notch.
Yeah, totally saw that coming. Solo, obviously. Christine Majerus won the Luxembourg National Championship on the road. Again.
How many is that now?
Okay, so since 2007, she's won the TT. I could assume that it's the same on the road.
Math.
A lot. A couple. How weird would it be if she lost and she was in the regular kit?
No.
I wouldn't know what I was watching.
I would, yeah.
all the riders who won their national championships and like re-centered the universe, it would then just be like thrown out the window. Like, forget it. It's over. Laura Lizette Sander won the Estonian national championship for AG Insurance. Blanca Voss in Hungary. Two of my favorite riders on planet Earth won their national championships. Alison Jackson won in Canada after an incredible bit of teamwork from Sarah Poitevin, my former teammate and one of my favorite human beings. And Amelia Fallon won in Sweden. Another like just makes sense moment.
Excellent.
Yep. So that's the national championships. I think that with our many diverges around conversations, we can now change our focus to the Giro Donne, which is going to start Friday we had this debate last year. Is it a prologue? Is it a time trial? It's 4.4 kilometers long. Last year was 4.7. And we were like, I think it's a prologue. It was won in like just under 6 minutes by Kristen Faulkner last year. So is it a prologue? Is it a time trial?
Amy, I'm loving your face. I know you can see it, but I'm enjoying it. That's got a segue into your reaction.
I don't care. It's just, it's too confusing. Like, it doesn't matter.
I don't know why they couldn't have tacked on 10 extra kilometers.
Someone just decide, and then let's just, I don't know. Shouldn't they? I mean, we can't trust them with anything.
You know, I guess the only reason that I think it matters is because it's going to be like a 5-ish minute effort, and it counts as a stage. So if you look at it, the race is already 1 day short. Like it's already only 9 days instead of 10, which it's supposed to be like the 10-day race for the women. And it's only 9 days. And then if you factor on that the first stage, they're only actually racing for like 5 minutes. They only race 8 days. And so I think in that sense, that is why it matters.
Yeah.
But in the sense of like, is it a prologue or a TT? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, so it's technically a bit of a cop-out, really, isn't it?
It is. It's a little bit like throwing a crit as the last stage of a race, for example.
Mm.
Although it's worse than that, because crits are still like really exciting.
Yeah, I was gonna argue that a little bit actually.
You should argue that. That was a stupid take.
I don't know that a crit is that to the same extent of warming up.
I guess I was thinking like Tour California. Back in the day when Tour California was only 3 stages and the final stage was a crit, it felt like a cop-out. Like it felt like
you can have that.
Yeah. But like in terms of like the women's tour, the final race being a crit, it's awesome. It's like a really great end to the race. So I think it depends on the race. But in the sense of this, I don't know. I think maybe like a slight hint of disappointment will be blanketed over this entire race, no matter what. And having it start off with such a short stage in an already shortened race is a little bit of a bummer. But I think like it does make for a little bit of an interesting start to the race in that it favors like a sprinter type to win, which means that the fight for the pink jersey in the first couple days is going to be pretty interesting, kind of like last year, where we had Kristen Faulkner was in the first one, obviously, and then Elisa Balsamo took it on stage 2 with bonus seconds. So it might be interesting in that sense. We shall see. And stage 2 is already like a pretty interesting one. I don't know how this is going to end, but it's 102K, which is pretty short for a road stage, with a category 2 climb 15 kilometers from the finish. The climb is 16K long and averages 4.5%. Yeah, exactly, Amy. Exactly. So it's not an insignificant climb, but it's not exactly like GC classification climb. But it's also like 16K is a long climb. So I was thinking that this stage looks great for Jumbo Visma to like line it out on the front and try to drop the sprinters, but hold on to Voss maybe if they wanted to do that, because then Voss could take the pink jersey. But we'll see. It's a really interesting day. Have you recovered from it being 16 kilometers long yet?
The climb, me?
Yeah.
You know what I was doing then? I was concentrating on the profile. I'd like got it up and I was looking at it like.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yeah.
I thought that was your reaction to
It was a bit of both.
Reaction there.
No, it was a bit of both. I was like, oh, that's long, but I was also like trying to read it at the same time. Like, what is that?
Oh, it all makes sense now.
Yeah, I'm
You're
quite
right,
blind.
though.
You know, like, after.
Potential Voss day.
It is a potential Voss day, but it could also be like an opportunistic rider who could try to take this on the descent. I don't think Marlon Roos is racing, but like I would pick her if she was for something like this.
Marlon Roos's descending is chef's kiss.
Oh my gosh, she was amazing. Like I thought Kasia was good. She put her to shame at Tour de Suisse.
She did. Sorry, Kasia. She did.
Sorry. We love you.
At this point in the week, we are rather cobbling together, aren't we, who we know is and isn't riding. But because we've just gone off at so many tangents, I just wanted to get to you once again, Abby. The fact that we do know the lineup for Lidl Trek, and we have that in the guise of a shopping receipt.
Yeah, it was a really good way to present. Really good way to present the lineups.
I liked as well how they put how many of each one. Like the men, they did how many tours, and the women how many Giros they've done. And at least done 11. I was shook.
She's been around for a while.
Sorry.
I think she maybe is one of the most like popular women in the peloton now too. And I feel she deserves that title. I think she's only gotten it in the last like 2 years, but she is like one of the greatest that we have in the peloton. Even though she doesn't win all the time, she is just consistently there. She is the most consistent rider ever when she's healthy.
And this is something I won't know because I never went to the heights that you did in cycling, nowhere near it. Is there just that feeling of respect when somebody's not only that good, but that consistent and been that consistent for so long?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that there's even more respect for someone like Elisa who's consistently good than someone who has a couple really good results, but otherwise has a hard time. I think like, yeah, it is so hard to be so consistent because your form fluctuates throughout the year, but it also fluctuates from year to year depending on, you know, what you're going on in life. If you switch a coach, if you move, if you have a breakup, all of these things like factor into how your form is. And for someone to be that consistent for so long, given that she's also been living the same life that we've all been living, is pretty incredible. All right, stage 3 is definitely a sprinter stage. There is one category 3 climb in the first 50 kilometers of the race, but other than that, it is flat or as flat as we think a stage would be in the Giro Donne. You never know.
You do never know.
Well, this is something else that it's very easy for me to say from a commentary box or a sofa that I think something's pan flat. And then I quite often actually see it play out and think, maybe I was a little bit dismissive.
Especially with the Giro.
Yeah, the Giro's like its own monster. I think this one looks pretty flat, and I think given that the stage before it is probably not going to be a sprinter stage, I think it will be at the very most a reduced bunch sprint, a very reduced bunch, and then the stage after this is quite challenging. And so I think that this stage is going to be a sprinter stage because they have limited opportunity in 8 days of racing, and either end of this is not one. So that's my guess.
Who knows?
There are not a ton of sprinters on the start list that we know of.
There's not a ton of people on the start list.
There's only 2 people. There's only 2 teams on the start list that we know of as we're recording this. But I think that we can safely say that Voss is a good shout to win any sprint stage. She has won like how many stages of the Giro again? I think it's like 24 or something. 37.
I don't have it on a little receipt, so I can't confirm that right now. But
I'm pretty sure that I remember last year when she won multiple stages of the Giro that there was this whole kerfuffle about how Cav was going for the Merckx record and how Voss had already done it at the Giro.
You're absolutely right.
So she's won
32.
Okay, well, it's close. It's very close to the record at the Tour. But yeah, Voss the GOAT, I think will be aiming for even more stages of the Giro. And as far as we can tell at the moment, she is really the only sprinter lining up. We have like a couple sprintery types on Trek, like Loretta Hansen. Maybe they'll let her kind of go for it. She's got a good kick on her when she's allowed to do something. But I think like for Trek, they clearly are geared toward the general classification instead of any kind of stage hunting. And they don't have Balsamo after she crashed and broke her face. So she's still out, unfortunately. And DSM also doesn't have Charlotta Cool. So who they had last year, they had Cool and Wiebes. And this year they don't. They have Megan Jastrab, I think, would be a great shout for a couple sprint stages. Like she clearly has been working on her sprint and she looked great in the spring. And so I think maybe she'll be who they're sprinting for based on the rest of the lineup.
Mm-hmm. There's also Marta Bastianelli.
Yeah, it's her last race of her career.
Mm-hmm.
So she'll really want to take a stage. Stage 4 is the longest stage of the race at 134 kilometers, which
That's short, hey.
It's really short. Like, remember 2020 when there was a 165 kilometer long stage won by Lizzie Banks?
And in the end, it was like 170 with the neutral. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the longest stage of the race, but it's still not long, which I don't know. I think we're all really looking forward to the takeover from RCS, given the drama that we've gone through this year with this race.
Honestly, I'm like, this is how I feel about the Giro. When like you're with someone and you feel like you're going to break up with them and you start to like detach emotionally. That's how I feel about the Giro.
You know how I feel about the Giro? New Year's Day or New Year's Eve. Because New Year's Eve always has so much hype and you're always so excited for New Year's Eve and you get dressed up and you put on heels and you do your makeup and then you go out for New Year's Eve and it sucks. Every single time it sucks. It is never a fun time, New Year's Eve. And that's how I feel about the Giro. Is every time I get excited because it's the Giro and it's this huge thing in women's cycling. It's like the 34th edition of the Giro. It's a big deal. It's the longest race we have on the calendar in terms of stages. And every single time I'm like really excited. And then the live coverage craps out on the Queen stage or like things get rerouted. The freaking whole, when Lizzie Banks won that stage of the Giro, they sent them the wrong way. It's like that these things always happen with this race. And so I feel like I always like want to hype it and then I'm always disappointed.
Good on you for being optimistic every time though. I just went full cynical. Just like,
yeah, but it's painful for me. So
you're getting your heart broken.
All right. This stage, longest stage, and also we have 3 categorized climbs, all 3 of which are in the second half, and they're all category 3s, but they're back to back to back. So I think that this will be an exciting stage for maybe a breakaway. We'll see. Stage 5, 3 categorized climbs, 2 3s and a 1, and the Cat 1 is pretty early on in the stage. So this is the stage that I have marked for Annemiek van Vleuten to do what Annemiek van Vleuten does. Remember stage 4 last year when I swore that was going to be a breakaway day? And Amy said it's a general classification day and I didn't listen to her. And then she was right because that was the day that Annemiek and Mavi Garcia and Marta Cavalli rode away and the general classification was done. That's what I'm seeing happening here because you've got the category 1 stage, the category 1 climb right in the beginning of the stage. They basically start climbing. And then there are 2 category 3s later on in the stage that lead to the finish, which is slightly uphill. And this just looks like a repeat of stage 4 from last year.
You're happy that was mentioned, aren't you, Amy?
Very. Yes. I like being right.
This is the whole reason I wanted Amy on this episode, just so I could tell her she was right.
Oh,
we can make this a weekly thing if you want.
What do you guys think? What do you think of this stage? I think it looks really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I think it looks like the first GC stage.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially because those two climbs at the back end, I think will be harder than they look on paper.
Probably. The only thing though is that climb does come quite early.
Yeah, but it's only 103 kilometer long stage.
Yeah.
So it looks early, but it's still like once they're done with it, once they get to the bottom, they've only got 50, 60K left in the stage. Annemiek can do 60K solo.
So we know, well, we think, we're pretty sure that we know we're going to have Annemiek. We're not going to have Vollering. No Demi Vollering. Serving herself for the Tour de France fan. But yeah, she can, can't she? We know what Annemiek can do. But as you know, I'm just obsessed with seeing how they're going to fare against each other in the Tour. So yeah, a little bit disappointed not to see both of them go for something on that stage. But Vollering, hanging back. And I mean, this is, again, another conversation, but the length of time between the Giro and the Tour, not surprised Demi skipping it, but also equally Annemiek van Vleuten, she wants to try and do it all, doesn't she, as much as possible in what we again think will definitely be her retirement year.
I feel like the fact that the two favorites for the Tour have gone two completely different routes in terms of like prep is making the Tour more interesting to me, because we're going to go into it knowing how Van Vleuten is riding and having no idea how Demi is riding. And I feel like there's a sense of mystery involved in that I think makes it super cool. And there's still like a bit of unknown with Annemiek going into this. I mean, she got the floor wiped with her at the time trial at the Dutch National Championships, and she'd just come down from altitude, like Gracie said last episode, but it's Annemiek. Like, she's the former world champ in time trialing. So I don't know. I'm really curious to see, like, and one of the reasons I think that this stage suits her is because her climbing hasn't been on par this year, and maybe that's just up against Vollering, but up against Guy Riolini, I don't know. I don't know how that's going to go. So
my hot take is that Annemiek's done.
Oh, wow.
I reckon we're not going to see her.
I missed your hot takes so much.
No, I just think she's off the boil. Like, I don't know. I just think she can't get back to the level that she's had. And I reckon the elastic snapped a bit, maybe. And her head's probably also rolled off with SD Works completely destroying her. I don't know. That's my hot take.
I think that she's
might age like milk, but
I think she's not the type to, remember when I wrote that article at the other place that was like, the age of Annemiek is over, and then she went and won the Giro the next day? It was great. I loved that moment for me.
I was just waiting to chip in with my, I'm going to disagree with you, Amy. Just because we've seen this so many times where we've got, like, she's really, really sick. There's absolutely no way she's going to come bounce back on the next stage tomorrow, or she's like broken her wrist, and then she'll just basically come back and absolutely smash it anyway. So I'm so used to that throughout her career. I hear you, but I'm still not ruling it out that she's suddenly going to come into the Tour and do something very exciting. But I just can't wait to see her and how she's going to fare against Demi Vollering, because I just like those images in my head from Demi last year, basically doing what Annemiek says she didn't do in the Road Champs, but gluing herself onto Annemiek's wheel and knowing that there was absolutely nothing else she could do, because Annemiek was just going to go when she went, and all she could do was try and cling on. But then she knew that, and I think knowing that and having the ability to do something about it are two different things. But we know what Demi's done over the winter from the snapshots we've seen and how she's come into this year with the form she's got. But we know she conditions so much off the bike. She knows exactly what she needs to do. And that's why I just really, really want to see that head to head again and just see if it will be flipped, if it will go the other way. And there's a good chance that it will. But I don't think we can discount Annemiek yet.
I think that how she fares in this race up against, like, not as strong competition as she will face at the Tour will really impact how she races at the Tour. Like, if she is beaten by Guy Riolini in this race, or Mavi Garcia or Marta Cavalli is coming back,
Niamh.
She looks great. Niamh Fisher-Black, yeah, definitely. Won a stage of Swiss, like, she's on fire. Anyway, if she's beat by one of these riders, it will be really interesting to see how that impacts her going into the tour and how that impacts her break in between the two. I think that's, yeah. But it's Annemiek. She's just like next level. Like, it seems like nothing phases her.
But that's such an interesting point, though, Abby, about the psychology, because she has come back against the odds so many times and gone, do you know what? I know that even with illness and injury, I am the strongest person in this peloton. And mentally, she's known that. So that is probably the most interesting element, isn't it? How is that going to affect her without being able to say, yeah, but I know I can do what I do on a climb and nothing else will matter by that point. I will just ride away. And we haven't seen her, as you say, Amy, being able to do that so far this season. So I wonder how much of a head game it's going to be for her, especially, again, depending on the Giro. But yeah, Gaia Realini.
You know, I bet Annemiek agrees with me that she wishes there was a longer time trial, because if there was a longer time trial, she would have a way better chance against someone like Realini. But given that there isn't, although let's get into the next stages, because there's not really that much climbing either. So stage 6, another short one, 104, and it's the first uphill finish, but it's like a kicker. So it's a Cat 3, quite short and punchy, and there's 2 Cat 3s before it. So it's potentially like a Voss day, or it could be like a small group of punchy riders that includes GC favorites, but also includes just good climbers. I think that one will be interesting. Stage 7 is the real like general classification day, and it's the most climbing we have, really, which is not saying much because this race is so bland compared to former Giros. So it's 109 kilometers with 2 Cat 3s and 2 Cat 2s. It goes 3, 2, 2, 3, but the 2 and 3 at the end are really just one long climb. They kind of, the 2 climbs, and then it's like a plateau, and then the 3 kicks. So this is the real general classification day. And I think like the climbs are not that long and they're not that steep. And so I think that this is a day that is going to suit the GC riders, but I think that it doesn't suit Annemiek. I think that the climb is not hard enough for her. I think that the climb is perfect for like Gaia Realini or Marta Cavalli, and is not a great climb for Annemiek because it's just not long enough.
Yeah, she needs like a long effort to kind of outdo people with basically her endurance on climbs.
Which is why I think that the stage before, that stage 5 is going to be the one that she has her eye on. Because when you get to stage 7, it doesn't look like a day that is going to be great for her. I mean, there's a Cat 3 earlier on in the stage that I think she could use as a launching point to try to get ahead of everybody before the climb. But I don't think that that's how she's going to play it. I think that's too predictable. Yeah. And then stage 8 and stage 9, they go over to Sardinia. On stage 8, it's like pretty rolly. Like there's a Cat 3 near the finish, but other than that, it's basically just like jagged, which means it could be a really hard day, but it's likely going to be like a reduced bunch to the line, maybe a breakaway day. And stage 9, 126.8 kilometers long with a Cat 3 super early in the day, a Cat 3 like 2/3 of the way through, and then it descends to the finish. So it's another, I don't know, it could be like a last ditch attempt for someone to gain time on the general classification, but really like the only super hard GC day that we have is stage 7, the day before they go to Sardinia.
Also, they're not just popping over to Sardinia. That's a long transfer day they've got.
Yeah.
Which is also a factor, I would think, maybe. Like, I mean, it's such a weird like composition.
It does, like the race just feels so half-hearted, and I feel like, I don't know if we talked about this in a former episode or not, but there was a bunch of hullabaloo about whether or not it was even going to happen. And like last week we went through this whole thing where I genuinely thought that the race was not going to happen because there was all this drama about whether or not they would have TV coverage, and then they were going to the Italian Cycling Federation to ask for 750,000 euros so that they could pay for the TV coverage, because without the TV coverage, it's so confusing. It's like Italian politics in cycling. Without the TV coverage, then the race might be demoted from the World Tour, which I don't think actually would have happened, but that's a whole different discussion. And RCS is set to take over the race next year, which originally I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. There's 2 races that RCS puts on for the women, and that's the UAE Tour and Strada. And Strada never has great, like, very long live coverage. It's sometimes been pretty disappointing. And so I think, like, I was like, I don't know, jury's out on this one. But now the way that this race has come about this year, with one kind of a less than exciting lineup of stages, the fact that the prize purse is just abysmal. It's gone down for the winner, it used to be 50,000 euros. Now it's 2,000. So a massive drop in prize money, and that they needed to find this extra money for the live coverage. It's just like really a shame for the women's peloton that this is kind of what's happening in 2023, when we have so many races that care deeply about the women and putting on a good show, like putting on a good event for them. And then there's this one that has always been a bit like, we're going to put on a race and you're going to come do it. And this year has been worse than ever.
And I think it's about that excitement in the lead up to it. You know, for the riders, obviously knowing what's happening is absolutely crucial. But for us as fans and journalists and people that want to bring that information to an audience, we haven't been able to do that. And even a couple of days ago, I was thinking, well, there's absolutely no way this is going to go ahead, because we don't know. Yeah, we haven't seen proper profiles. We don't know what the stage is looking like. We don't know who's racing. And so I think that's a big shame, when all we're trying to do is get more eyes on the sport. We couldn't say to people, well, you're definitely going to be able to watch this next week, could we?
I feel like you still can't really say it. Like, GCN has the times laid out on the races to come at 2 hours blocked out each day, but it's the same time every day, which is definitely not going to be what the actual time is for the stages. So they've just kind of put a placeholder in there. And I don't know. I feel like I don't think I'm going to be able to. I'm not positive about if we can watch this until I'm literally watching it on the screen. I won't believe it.
The thing is as well with all of this stuff, and like, you know, talking about how bad it is, and just like, obviously it needs to be called out. But I mean, I've written about this a few times in my newsletter, but like, I do think it's kind of
Women's Cycling Weekly. You should check it out.
Thanks. I do think this is kind of like the dying days of a time in the sport where like half-assed organizers got away with it. And now we're seeing this transition to like big organizers. Yes, okay, RCS maybe don't have the most amazing track record with like live coverage, this sort of thing, but at the end of the day, they are a professional race organizer. And, you know, they run the men's Giro, like Strade Bianche. Like, I was at UAE Tour and it was really well run. Obviously, because I was there, I don't know exactly what it seemed like. They had decent live coverage from what
it did have decent live coverage.
So I do actually have like quite high hopes for RCS's takeover of the race, and it's almost as if now it's like, just let the old Giro organizers, like, it's the end of an era of the race where we're always just like rolling our eyes at the Giro, and like, not that we're wasting our breath with like saying how like annoying and terrible it is that there's no coverage, there might not be any coverage and the prize money and this and that, because it is still like crap. But I just think it is like this kind of, we're in this transition period with races and with the sport in general, I think, where like there's the newer, more professional version, and the older kind of like shambolic versions being phased out a bit. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Like, I feel like we just need to get through this edition, and I have high hopes for the future, which might come to bite me in the butt. But with the tour kind of setting the bar for what races should do, I feel like RCS doesn't really have any choice but to step it up. And you know what? If they can't, then we have Turingen potentially joining the World Tour. So there are other races that can slot into this block right now that the Giro takes up. And I don't know. It's just like, the Giro is always like kind of disappointing as fans of the sport because it's the only like grand tour that we had as women before we had the tour and before the Vuelta added stages. But it's still just like always a letdown. And it sucks for the riders more than anyone else because it's this race that they target throughout the year. It's like one of the biggest races on their calendar. Like if you look at Veronica Ewers, who is doing audio diaries for us next week, this is her biggest race of the year, the race that she's targeted. And if it had not happened, then she's not raced in months in preparation for this race. And her team is falling apart. So like, what would that mean for her career? And you look at stuff like that and it's just like such a shame that the riders are being treated this way. And it's a whole other thing, like what this means for fans of the sport who are trying to get into women's cycling. And we're in this sweet spot right now where if we can maintain where we are in terms of fan base, there are great things happening for women's cycling. But when shit like this happens and they don't know if they can tune into a race or not, like people will lose interest. So we need to be able to hold on to that. And it's not helping that we don't know a week ahead of the race whether there will be live coverage or not. Just like the number one thing that we need to keep pushing the sport forward.
On a positive note, I have the little receipt. Have I mentioned that they've launched on a little receipt?
So good.
And if hopefully everything will be good, the race will happen, it will go ahead and we'll watch it live. But this roster, Logo Bergini, Raylini, also Elena Baxter, Lizzie Diagon, Loretta Hansen, Lisa Klein and Sharon Van Anrooy. That's a bit handy, isn't it?
That is they were just like, we're going all in for the Giro this year is what they said. I mean, they've got Lizzie on there, who's like the best team captain in the business. They've got some really incredible domestiques in there as well. And I'm so excited to see how this goes. Although, looking at this roster, I'm pretty sure that Trek Segafredo or Little Trek gave me Brody Chapman to do the audio diaries, and she's definitely not on the start list for them. So I'm going to have to message them.
I already thought Brody was doing it.
Of the only two teams where we have an actual lineup so far, Trek Segafredo is clearly going for the GC. Like they have a team that is 100% built around Gaia Riolini. If there is a Giro that Elisa could win, it might be this one because it doesn't have as much climbing as it's had in the past. And even when it's had a good amount of climbing, she's still finished on the podium in the general classification. So I think like if there was ever a Giro that has her name on it, it might be this one. But I think it's also just they have multiple cards to play. And
second hot take of the episode from me is that I don't know if this race is a Gaia Riolini race or a Sharon Van Anrooy race because it's a bit
good take. Great take. No, that's a great take.
Just because I think for Gaia Riolini, maybe there'd need to be a bit more climbing and a bit less rolling / punchy days.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I'm going to agree. I now agree with you, Amy. I think this, I think having actually just gone through those profiles and discussed them a little bit more closely, I think you're absolutely right. It's not out and out ridiculously hard long climbs that we might see suit someone like Gaia. But yeah, we know Elisa's coming back in good form as well. So I think you're absolutely right there. There's a lot of cards to play. It'd be interesting to see how that does play.
DSM is the other roster we have, and I think it's I'm interested to see how they play it because they have Esme Peppercamp, who's a pretty good climber, rode really well at UAE Tour, and I'm curious to see like how she'll go. Obviously, like you guys just said, it's not like a climbing course. I think it suits her better than if there had been long mountain climbs. But they also have Juliette Lebeau, who is just a phenomenal rider. And she won the Queen Stage, or she won the only mountaintop finish of the 2022 Giro, and won Basque. She won one of the World Tour stage races last year in Spain. She's really good. So I'm excited to see how this works for her. I think the fact that we don't know a lot of the start lists, but also that we do know that there are riders targeting the Tour and not going to the Giro, that it opens up opportunities for a rider like Juliette to get a result in the general classification.
She's doing the Giro Tour double for the second year in a row.
Legend.
Impressive.
And yeah, for EF, we know that like Veronica Ewers is going. She's a phenomenal climber, but I think maybe she needs longer climbs to get some kind of results. And I am just really curious about a couple of the rosters that we don't know yet. I'm curious about Jumbo-Visma and who they're going to take. I'm curious about AG Insurance, if they will have Ashley Mollin-Pasio, if she's going to do the double or if she's focusing purely on the Tour. Amy's shaking her head. She knows insider information.
I saw her the other day. She said she wasn't doing the Giro.
All right, so she's focusing on the Tour. Good on her.
I wasn't drunk that time. I was sober.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see who FDJ takes, given that Cavalli just won a stage of the Pyrenees race and looks like she's coming back into form based on how she raced at the national championships. And she was obviously second overall at this race last year and then had the horrific crash in the Tour that she's been coming back from. So I'm really excited to see if she races, how that goes, because I think actually the course suits her more than last year.
Yeah, they need to kind of pull something out of the bag. They've been a bit listless this year, FDJ, it seems.
But now I'm going to wrap up the episode because this has been a long one, guys. We went off on some tangents. So we're going to end the episode with what we always end it with. And Amy will only know if she's listened to episodes because I didn't give her any indication that this is how we end episodes. Bex, what have you been obsessed with lately?
I am, and bear with me, obsessed with
Amy's shorts.
Amy's left. Right. I'm obsessed with asking my non-cycling friends, A, if they have watched Tour de France Unchained on Netflix, and B, whether they understand what the hell is going on in our sport. And it's like when you think, every time I catch up with someone like over the weekend, like, have you watched the Tour de France Netflix series? And how many episodes in are you? And do you know what's happening?
What kind of answers are you getting?
I think people love it. I think they really love it.
Interesting.
And I'm excited that some of my friends are going to start binge watching a show about cycling. But it is interesting because I don't think everyone's got that far into it yet. But it does make you realise the complexities of it in translating that to someone that's never ever watched any of the bike racing for the rest of the season.
I haven't asked anybody that I know that's not a bike racing fan, but I did do a podcast with the Escape Collective breaking down every episode of that show, and that was an experience.
I haven't finished it, so I can't go and listen yet.
I haven't even watched.
Yeah, but Amy, you famously don't watch men's cycling.
I'm getting better at that, actually.
I hope so, because your partner does race.
Yeah, but mountain
biking is way cooler. Amy, what have you been obsessed with lately?
Mountain bike? No, I'm kidding. Although maybe a bit. Puck, specifically.
She's amazing. Do you see the picture of her with the pizza?
I did.
It was great.
I did.
It's awesome.
Absolutely amazing.
Oh, I love her. She's great. What am I obsessed with?
I can answer while you think about it.
I thought you can answer for me then. I was like, please tell me.
I'll answer for you.
I'm going to say what Amy's thinking.
I have been obsessed with, as I said last week, I'm in Latvia and I'm still in Latvia, and I am obsessed with cold beet soup, which is basically just salad in a soup form. So it's like kefir, shredded beets, cucumber, cherry tomatoes, potatoes, like boiled potatoes. Cut it all up, throw it in there. It literally takes like 10 minutes to make, and it's super refreshing on a hot day. Like nice and chilled soup, and it's soup, and like who doesn't love soup? And it's really good. Also dill. You need to have dill. If it's a Latvian dish, it has dill. There's all this talk about potatoes, but it's actually every Latvian dish has dill in it.
Do you know what? I was going to say, do you know what's interesting? You might not find this interesting, but I'm going to chuck it in anyway before we all wrap up. When I did the Team DSM Firmnet launch the other day, I was chatting to the riders about cold soup because they wanted to know if I enjoyed a cold soup, and I said, well, to be honest, I've not really indulged in gazpacho. Is that what
gazpacho? Yeah.
So I haven't delved into that world of cold soup, but interesting that I've had 2 conversations about cold soup now in a couple of weeks, all related to cycling. There you go.
It's a small world. Yeah, if you ever come across like cold beet soup, there's Polish versions, there's like Eastern European versions, and I just love it. I think it's amazing.
Now I'm hungry.
You're welcome.
I've got mine.
Okay, go for it.
Not going to surprise you. It's summer. It's Love Island.
Oh, God.
Obsessed. Sam's obsessed as well. More than me, I think.
You know, your accent when you said it kind of like added just an extra layer on top of it. And that's something that I'm not going to get over for a long time.
What,
so,
Love Island for my accent?
You saying, it's summer. I can't do it.
It's summer.
That was quite good. That was good. Love. I go, no, I'm not even going to attempt.
It sounded like Jamie Tart on Ted Lasso is what it sounded like.
I'll watch that.
Oh my God,
good.
I'm also obsessed with Ted Lasso.
How could
if
you
you
not
ever
be?
invite me back, I will delve into that.
That show is a 10 out of 10. Like
it's
that.
beautiful, isn't
Yeah.
it beautiful? So that's a good comparison, Amy. And one more, Selling Sunset. Right, I'm done.
Oh, yes.
Man,
Yep.
that show is wild. And before we start talking about that, I'm going to cut us off because we are pushing 90 minutes for this episode. But I hope everyone enjoyed it. There's Giro preview for you. There's talk of acrylic nails, all the good stuff. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks you too for joining me on this journey. And we will be back, well, not next week because we'll be back on Friday to talk about the Giro Donne. Me and the one and only Hannah Barnes will be talking about the prologue /TT. So tune in. And yeah, thank you.